Good morning. My name is BHATIA. This is our class of BHIC 131 and we are going to start our unit 8 of BHIC 131. Unit 8 The Early Vedic Society. As you are looking at this picture that one guru and two followers are sitting beside the guru. That is connected to Vedic culture. They are giving the Vedic literature. They are giving the information about Vedas. Vedas are of four types: Rig Veda, Samveda, Atharvaveda, and Yajurveda. Four Vedas are there in prevalent in our society, and we are going to start to read about some important information related to Veda society, Vedic society. As you are looking at this picture, that there are four varnas in our society at that time prevalent. Four varnas prevalent at that time: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. You all can see the condition of each varna. What were they doing, and what were the activities they were performing at that time? You can see Brahmin teaching Vedas, Kshatriya warrior class, Vaishya business class, and Shudra the servicemen of these three varnas, the servants of these three varnas. These were known as the Varna system. In the previous unit, you saw that in different regions of India, communities, different stages of cultural development were present during 2000 to 1000 BCE, before Common Era. Their cultures were essentially agro-pastoral, and our understanding of these cultures is based entirely on archaeological remains. Because, with the exception of Harappan culture, none of these cultures have left behind any written records except Harappan culture. In this unit and in the one following it, however, we will be focusing on the evidence provided by voluminous body of what are considered to be the earliest literary records of India. Vedic corpus, a vast scadartal literature. The Vedas were looked upon as not being created by humans, Purusha, but as divine revelations that were heard by sages, by seers. Not being written at the time of their being revealed, they were handed down to posterity by a near perfect memorization, almost syllable by syllable. This process is beautifully and strikingly analogized in the frog hymn of Rig Veda. As you all know, the Rig Veda was the oldest Veda. If we will consider about the four Vedas, then the oldest Veda is, was, and will be Rig Veda, oldest Veda. It says that the students were supposed to memorize the hymns following the lead given by one. One was Guru. Just like many frogs croak during the monsoons by imitating the first croaking frog, they were remembered meticulously, transmitted orally over multiple centuries, which depend on the correct pronunciation and articulation of sound without any modification, any addition and subtraction till they were written down. They were memorized. They were at that time they recall the Vedas. They recall the mantras at that time. They have no any written material. They have no any written method in the class because uh, they memorize, they learned, they pronounce the important Vedas and the mantras. They chanting at that time. They were chanting at that time also. You can see the map and some important states at that time where they were doing these all activities at that time. Because earlier we have studied about Harappan civilization. We have studied about Copper Age. Now we are going to start Vedic period. Vedic period connected to Vedas. Vedas are of four types. First and the oldest Veda is Rig Veda. We also try to supplement this literary evidence with wherever relevant archaeological evidence. Rig Veda is regarded as the earliest collection of hymns available, and so we will start by examining this text for an understanding of the early Vedic period. Then go on to the other Vedas and allied texts which are dated later. This exercise is necessary for two reasons. Firstly, Vedas are thought to have been composed by Aryans, and it was so long believed that the Aryans played a major role in civilizing the Indian subcontinent. As we have seen, the one of the destroyer of Indus Valley civilization was Aryans. Some archaeologists, some historians used to say that one of the destroyer of Indus Valley civilization was Aryans. Aryans invade India. Aryans invade at that time. After that, the Indus Valley civilization was downfall. The content of Rig Veda, if they are analyzed carefully, do not give the impression of a very advanced material culture. On the other hand, many of the material traits which are the characteristics of Indian civilization are already present in the non-Vedic archaeological cultures in different parts of India. Secondly, when the content of Rig Veda are compared with those of later Vedas and allied texts, it becomes clear that significant changes took place in Vedic society itself. This means that there was no fixed cultural pattern, which can be called Vedic culture or Aryan culture. You can see the picture of Agni. Earlier interpretation regarding the early Vedic society are based on the theory of Indo-Aryan migration from West Asia into India subcontinent. These migrants, who are regarded as the authors of Vedas, are called Vedic people. According to this historical interpretation, the Aryans came to India in several waves. One wave, second wave, third wave. The urban center of Indus civilization perished by mid-second millennium BCE, and protocol administration and economic system slowly withered away. The focus now shifting to rural settlements. It was perhaps around this time that the Indo-Aryan speakers entered northwestern India from Indo-Iranian borderlands, migrating in small numbers through the passes in northwest Palm Mountains and bring with them their luggage, rituals, social customs, later merging with the local populace. They are considered to represent a linguistic group speaking Indo-European languages. They are they are distinguished by traditional historians, archaeologists from non-Aryan Harappans of preceding period. In early Vedic society, it may be fruitful to see if literary texts, archaeological evidence can supplement each other. If both type of sources belong to same region, to the same period, they can collectively give us more detailed ideas on the economic, social, political, and religious life. Now we are going to see sources. Sources are of two types, literary sources and archaeological sources. Here we are studying sources. Here we are studying Vedas, Vedic culture, Vedic society, Vedic politics. Now, the literary sources of this period is mainly Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. The main sources of Vedas are Vedas. The word Veda is derived from Sanskrit word Ved, which means to know. The Vedas are essentially compilation of prayers, compilation of hymns offered to various gods and goddesses. Though they are primarily about religious life, rites, rituals, philosophical questions, issues, invocations dedicated to various deities often throw light on many aspects such as victory of wars, long life, freedom from disease, availability of cattle, horses, food, etc., desire for male offspring, and so on. It must not be forgotten that Vedic corpus evolved over many centuries, almost a millennium. As such, it cannot be taken as a mirror image of a static society and culture. There were identifiable changes in polity, in economy, society, and cultural life of Vedic populace from the Rig Vedic to later Vedic. There were so many changes. They connected to Vedic to later Vedic period. The four Vedas are also Samhitas in sense that they represent the oral tradition of the time. Samhitas. Since the hymns were meant to be recited, learned, transmitted orally, they were not written when they were composed. When the gurus and sages and they were composing the Vedas, that time they have not written. Due to this reason, none of the Samhitas can be dated with absolute certainty. In fact, each Samhita represents a period of many centuries. As such, an absolute dating of Vedic culture, Vedic literature is out of question. Relative dating, in terms of context, of these four Samhitas had led scholars to believe that the period represented in Rig Veda, what? The earliest of the Veda can be replaced between c. 1500 to 1000 BCE, means second half of the second millennium BCE. Rigvedic Samhita contains 1028 hymns, means suktas, divided into 10 books, 10 mandals, of unequal sizes, of which books 2nd and 7 are considered to be earliest and belong especially to early Vedic phase. They are referred to as the family books, after the name of family or clan of poets who composed the hymns in them. Book 1, 7, 9, and 10 are considered to be later additions. Among the commentaries on the text, the best known is that of Sayana of 14th century CE, who lived in Vijayanagara dominion. Without Sayanacharya commentary, it would have been impossible for Max Miller to prepare the edited version of Rig Veda in 19th century. The scholars found similarities in the language used in Rig Veda and Avesta. Avesta was the oldest Iranian text, which is older to Rig Veda. Avesta also was the epic of that time. Avesta was connected to Irani culture and Rig Veda was connected to Indian culture. The linguistic and cultural parallels between Avesta and Rig Veda occur not only in words but also in concepts. For example, the interchangeability of H and S, Hauma, Daha, Hepta, Hindu, Ahura, Informal and Soma, Dasa, Sapta, Sindhu, Asur in later. In the context of deities, the attributes of gods are often reversed. The Asuras are projected in the Rig Veda as demons and enemies of the gods, Devas. In the Avesta, Devas such as Indra are demonic, whereas Asura is the supreme deity. Based on these similarities and taking into account the chronological precedence of Avesta over the Rig Veda, they suggested that number one, the people represented in both these books belong to a common linguistic group and they migrated from West Asia to Iran to Indian subcontinent. These people were called Aryans. This had led to the assumption that the old Iranian and Indo-Aryan speakers were originally a single group whose dissensions resulted in their branching up. Consider the geographical proximity of Iran with northwest borderland of the Indian subcontinent. It could be suggested that Indo-Aryan speakers following a dissension migrated to Indian soil. They created the Rig Veda upon coming into India. Next is the Aryans had a common original home from where different groups migrated to Europe and the East. According to Bal Gangadhar Tilak, George Pedencamp, Arctic zone was the original home of Aryans. Arctic zone. This theory is not accepted at large because we have not any evidence related to this. Next is archaeological sources. Firstly, we have written about literary sources. Literary sources means connected to some written evidence. Next is archaeological sources connected to some archaeological evidences. Excavation in Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, northern Rajasthan, along the Indus and Ghaggar rivers over the last 40 years have unearthed many posts. Harappan Chalcolithic settlements, which have been dated from 1700 to 600 BC. You have read about these cultures in Unit 7, Copper Chalcolithic settlements. You have seen that these Chalcolithic cultures are also called Late Harappan. 231 OCP, ochre colored pottery, BRW, black and red ware, PGW, painted grey ware cultures. However, we must remember that the pottery types do not reflect an entire culture. Different pottery types do not necessarily mean that the people who use these pots are different. Pottery analysis only helps in defining a specific trait of the cultural assemblage, nothing more. Some scholars have made attempts to examine whether the evidence provided by some of these cultures of northwestern and north India can be compared with what we know from a study of Vedic texts. Now, the Aryan invasion, how the Aryan invade country, a myth or a myth or reality. Was the Aryan invasion a myth or reality? Let us see. The archaeologists have attempted to relate the various post-Harappan cultures with the Aryans. The painted grey ware pottery, which has been dated between PGW 900 to 500 BCE, has been repeatedly connected with Aryan craftsmanship. Their argument is based on inference, which the historians make their analysis of literary text. Here, the archaeologists following linguistic similarities found between Rigveda and Avesta tried to find similarities in pottery forms, paintings, ceramics, forms of copper objects, etc. between post-Harappan and West Asian Iranian Chalcolithic assembly. Such similarities were magnified to support the view that the Aryans were a group of people who migrated from West Asia to Indian subcontinent, West Asia. The literary and archaeological sources were made to support one another in order to validate the notion of migration. What was the notion of Aryans behind their migration to India? Linguistic similarities between Rig Veda and Avesta are well established, as we have seen, but such similarities do not really suggest large scale migration of people into Indian subcontinent. Secondly, the similarities which have been found between Chalcolithic artifacts of India and those of Western Asia are only occasional. They also do not suggest large scale migration of people. The concept of an Aryan, as stated before, cannot be equated with any particular type of pottery. It also does not have any ethnic or racial significance. The Aryan is therefore at best a vague concept related to linguistic similarities between people. Next, in this context, you should take into account the following points suggested by archaeological excavations. Number one, earlier scholars believed that Indo-Aryans caused the downfall of Harappan civilization by destroying the Harappan towns and cities. They quoted Rigvedic hymns which invoked Indra to destroy the dwellers of forts. Indra, the destroyer of the forts. But archaeological evidence has shown that the decline of Harappan civilization was not caused by any large destruction brought about an alien invaded group. Harappan civilization, chronology, geographical spread, diffusion, decline, you have seen in Unit 5. Next, attempt to identify the makers of painted grey ware with the Aryans. If we want to identify the Aryans, then we can identify them with painted grey ware. Also do not receive strong support from archaeological evidence. Only this much is the evidence for Aryans. If the PGW cultures were related to Aryans, then keeping the theory of invasion in mind, we should have found this pottery type in areas of Bahawalpur and Punjab, along the route taken by so-called Aryan migrants. However, we find these pottery types confined to a particular geographical region comprising Haryana, Upper Ganga Basin, and eastern Rajasthan. Next, it was earlier thought that there exists a time gap, a cultural discontinuity between the late Harappan and the post-Harappan Chalcolithic period. However, the recent excavation at Bhagwanpura, Daderi, Manda have shown that late Harappan and painted grey ware could be found together without any blame. Invasion cannot be proved on the basis of excavated sites. What disappeared after 1750 BCE were the urban centers of Harappan civilization, and such artifacts are seals, weights, measures, etc. Articles connected with trade and urbanism. The rural structure of earlier period continued into the second and first millennium BCE. The variation found in archaeological remains of the post-Harappan period, what in pottery, in metal implements, other objects, may also represent regional variations in the Indian Chalcolithic cultures. Archaeological evidence related to period between second millennium and first millennium BC has helped us modify existing views regarding the Vedic Aryans in several ways. What ways? Firstly, there is no substantial proof in archaeology that there was large-scale migration of people from Central and Western Asia to Indian subcontinent. There is no archaeological proof in history around 1500 BCE. Second, archaeologically, there is no proof that the Aryans destroyed the Harappan civilization and laid the foundation of a new Indian civilization. There is no proof related to this. In fact, although the Rig Veda repeatedly refers to hostilities, skirmishes, wars between different groups, some between those who call themselves Aryans, and some among the Aryans and Dasas. But the so-called clashes between Aryan and non-Aryan communities and cultures are not documented in archaeology. However, since the Rig Veda is the earliest collection of religious hymns available to us, its importance as a document of history is immense. The hymns provide such insight into various aspects of early Indian society as would not be available in archaeological evidence. From them, we get insight regarding the nature of economy, social organization, kingship, political organization, religious, cosmological beliefs, and so on. Much of this information is relevant and useful for understanding the nature of Indian society at later stages. Next is economy. Next will be society. Next will be political. Next will be religion. And next will be our sun. Firstly, we are going to start about what? Economy. Economy of early Vedic society. As you all know, at that time, the people were pastoral, cattle rearing being the dominant occupation activity. Dominant. Pastoral and cattle rearing. A pastoral society relies more on its animal wealth than agricultural produce. Pastoralism is a subsistence strategy adopted by people who live in areas where large scale agriculture is not feasible due to some environmental, to a certain context, cultural constraints. What was the economical condition at that time? First of all, we will say about the pastoral community, we will say about cattle rearing community at that time. The hymns of Rigveda yielded extensive evidence of the importance of cattle. There was very much importance of cattle, mainly cow. Many linguistic expressions in it are associated with cow, goat. It was a measure of wealth and value. A wealthy man who owned many cattle was called Gomat. The terms used for conflicts and battles are Gavishti, Gavesana, and Gavya. These were the terms used for the wars, battles. The former literally means to search for cows. They were searching for cows here and there. The king at that time, who was having a lot of cows in compare to other kings, then it was known as a very popular. It was called as a very popular and a very great king of that time. Means connected to cows, connected to Gaumatas. These terms themselves suggest that possession of cattle was the bone of connection, contention between groups, and led to occasional intertribal fights and disputes. The pennies in enemies of Vedic people are stated in Rig Veda to have hidden their wealth, mostly cows. They have hide. They have hidden their cows in mountains, in forest, because cows were the main reason for the battles. They were fighting the battles for the cows. The Vedic god Indra was invoked to release these cattle. This reference suggested that cattle raids and armed conflicts for cattle were common. The Raja or the chief is called Gopati, one who protects the cows. Gopati. In the text, Godhuli is used as a term for a measure of time. Godhuli. Distance is called Gavyuti. Daughter is called Duhitri, one who milks the cow. Duhitri. Kinship units are labeled as Gotra. You have also listened about the Gotras. At present, we use Gotras whenever we have some yajna, we have some ahutis, then we believe in the Gotra, and the priest people used to repeat the what repeat the gotra, that you chant your gotra, you chant your name, your gotra, your father name, your grandfather name, your gotra name. Okay, that thing is connected to present also. A person rich in cattle, gomad, was considered wealthy and eligible for membership of sabha. Okay, all these terms are derived from Gau and suggest that social, religious, and all other important areas of Rigvedic life centered around the rearing of cows. Literary references to pasture land, cow pen, dairy products, domesticated animals are also found in the most of hymns and prayers. It appears that cow was looked upon a totem animal and also an object of veneration. Besides cow, horse was also immensely important as this animal was crucial to movement in search of pastures in war. Cow is important for a wealthy king, for a wealthy merchant, and horse was important for war and in search of pastures. In mythology, it is projected as drawing not only the chariots of men but also those of gods. And where the grazing grounds were extensive, it was easier to herd cattle from horseback. That was the main reason behind this. Cow, horse, and the agricultural land, and related to a wealthy people. Compared to the very substantial linguistic evidence for cattle rearing in Rigveda, agricultural activities find very few references. Most of the references of agriculture are of a later date, apart from Yuva, apart from Yava, Yav. No other grains are mentioned. The early Vedic people were not familiar with iron technology. Copper, which they were familiar, did not have as much as value in agriculture operations as iron implements. Stone tools like axes were used, and these are mentioned in Rig Veda. Only axes. Shifting agriculture was practiced at that time. Further, the region under discussion receives low rainfall. All the rivers mentioned in the Rig Veda, like Satluj, Indus, Ghaggar, Ravi, are known to change their course frequently. Without the facilities of large scale irrigation, which were not developed in this period, the alluvial lands near the rivers could not be cultivated on a permanent basis. Thus, hoes, sickles, axes mentioned in the text were probably used for slashing purpose or shifting cultivation. The evidence of pastoralism as well as shifting cultivation suggests that people were either nomadic or semi-nomadic. They moved out of their villages with their herds for a certain period in order to feed their cattle. The literary and archaeological sources do show what they did not lead a fully sedentary life. The mobile character of population is seen in term which implied a settlement. Wish which implied a settlement. The suffix punar, wish, upa, wish, pra, wish, constantly used as settlements were qualified by them to mean settle near, means settlement, re-entering, settlement, coming back to the settlement. Gift exchange, redistribution had an important economic role in society. Gift exchange. They exchange their gift and redistribute on had an important economic role in society. Tribal conflicts led to the payment of tributes and pastoralism. Bali to victorious chief by the defeated or subordinated groups. The term later came to mean an offering to the gods. There was no regular text that could claim, nor did he have any rights on the land. He was entitled to a part of booty from successful cattle raids. After the shares, Bhaga, had been distributed and obviously claimed a larger one. There is also the mention of shulk, meaning the value or worth of an item. The rest of clansmen of victorious tribe had a share in the spoils and booty won in the war. The chief also fed a gave and gave gift to his clanmen during ceremonial occasions to acquire prestige. Evidence of trade and commerce in the early Vedic society is meager. There was no concept of private property. No concept of private property based on land ownership. Means the all over land area was connected to a king. The important person. The important person, just like chief also. The chief used to give land to the peasants, to the pastorals, no, not to pastorals, peasants. After that, they gave the land to the peasants, and the peasants gave part of that particular production of behalf of tax. Taxation was very important at that time also, by which the ruler had. It was a salary of the ruler from which the rulers were. Yes, the salary that the rulers were used for the welfare of the subjects, for the welfare of their subjects also. That is the tax. But somewhere it is written that there was no regular tax that he could claim, nor did he have any right on the land. You can see in the picture that's the condition of the society at that time. Early Vedic society was a tribal society. They connected to the forest. They connected to the forest and trees and the agricultural land. Tribal society. In which the social relation based on kinship ties. Kinship ties were predominant at that time. Kinship means the family of that particular kid or the particular vanch, the family. The society was not divided according to caste lines. Even rajas, purohits, artisans, etc., were part of clan networks. Clan means vanch. Rajas, purohits, then artisans. They were a part of clan networks. The tribe was referred to as Jana. The tribe, that particular tribe, just like Bhil, just like Santhal, just like Koho, they were known as the tribe. I am giving example of the tribe. The tribe was referred to as Jana, and many references to different tribes are found in Rig Veda. Yes, in Rig Veda we have seen a lot of tribes name they have given in Rig Veda. Intertribal conflicts, chiefly related to cattle raids, the thefts, frequently. An example being the Battle of Ten Kings. Battle of Ten Kings mentioned in Rig Veda. Dashraj. Some of the tribes who fought in this battle were Bharatas, Purus, Yadus, Druyus, Anus, Turvasus. Yes, they were the tribes fought in this battle. 6 has given out of 10. the battle of 10 kings. It is mentioned in Rig Veda also. The chief of tribe was the Raja or Gopati. Gopati means the people who has a lot of cows. Gopati, it is written in Rig Veda. He was a military leader in battle, protector of the tribe, military leader, Senapati, protector of the tribe. His office was not based on hereditary, but he was selected from amongst the clansmen. Means Vansh, means Khandan. Okay, it was based on clansman. His skills lay in safeguard the settlement, winning the booty in battles, both crucial to his status. They both were very much crucial for his status, like winning so many things in battles. Safeguard the settlement means the praja, means the subject. The warring category was Rajanya. Many clans, many wish formed a tribe. The clans settled in villages, gram. The basic society unit was Kula. Kula means family, and Kulapa, one who protects the family, denoted the eldest male member or head of the family, was known as Kulapa. Kulapa, head of the family, eldest male member of the family, Kulapa. And Kula means family. A number of Kulas made a gram, suggested the settlements based on kinship ties. The family books suggest that the family as a social unit extended over 3 generations, with the sons often living collectively in parental home. 3 generations. Tribe, tribal unit, village, family, head of the family. The society was patriarchal. Patriarchal means the father of the family was the head of the family. That is known as patriarchal family. The birth of a son was a common desire of people and was specially welcome as son's presence became increasingly significant in various ceremonies. The importance given to male members is reflected in hymns, where the desire for a son is a constant prayer. Constantly, they pray their God for the son only, fine son. However, the women had also important position in society. They were educated, had access to assemblies also. There are also instances of women who composed hymns. They had a right to choose their partners. They could marry late also, but they were always thought to be dependent on their father, brothers, and husbands. Always they were dependent. Education was imparted orally, but the tradition of education was not very well developed in this period. Yes, education was important at that time. The authors of Rig Veda distinguished themselves from other groups, whom they called the Dasas and Dasyus. Dasas and the Dasyus. The term Dasa is deployed in Rig Veda to denote the other person of different culture. Dasa, other person of different culture. The Dasas are described as dark, full-lipped, snub-nosed, worshippers of phallus and hostile speech. They are admonished in Rig Veda for not observing the rituals but rather practicing a fertility cult. They were rich in cattle, they lived in fortified strongholds. We learn about another people called the Panis, who were wealthy in cattle treasures. The term Pani came to be associated with merchants and wealth in subsequent ages. These groups fought and befriended each other from time to time, and one cannot define them as separate racial or linguistic groups. The most famous chief mentioned in Rig Veda is Sudas, Sudas, who led the Bharata tribe in the Battle of Ten Kings. We have studied about the Battle of Ten Kings and who was the main king of that time? Sudas. The Dasa ending in his name might suggest some links with the Dasas. However, the presence of different groups in the same area might have contributed to the emergence of Varna system. Various occupational groups such as weavers, such as smiths, carpenters, leather workers, chariot makers, priests, etc. are also mentioned. The chariot marks occupied a special social status. There are no reference to beggars, wage earners, wages in Rig Veda. However, the society was economically stratified, and we do not find reference to rich people possessing chariots, cattle, etc., and making generous gifts to them. There were no legal institutions like courts, like police station. There was no legal institution. Custom was law and direction, discretion of the tribal chief and priest was final. However, the elders of the community seem to have had a say too. Theft, particulate cattle stealing was the commonest crime. Re- the retribution for killing a man was 100 cows. 100 cows were the retribution for killing a man. Next is political system of early Vedic period. The tribal polity was not completely egalitarian. The division is found in Rig Veda itself, which is seen in the references of two groups. Which two groups? Rajanyas, or those who fought the wars and are credited to be senior lineage, and the rest of clansmen or the Vish who formed the junior lineages. Though none of groups occupied a distinct social hierarchy, constant conflict and inter-tribal wars helped to create a division in society. The growing needs of more pasture lands and cattle for protection of people and their settlement all probably contributed to an increase in inter and intra-tribal conflicts in 237 wars. The clans had large yajnas to ensure the victory of warrior groups in skirmishes. In these yajnas, the officiating priest, Purohit, acted as the mediator between his clansmen and the gods. He invoked the gods' blessing for the tribal chief for his success in the wars. Initially, the whole clan participated in these yajnas as an equal footing. Large-scale distribution of wealth, food, etc. was made during these sacrifices and the members got an equal share. But with the growing incident of conflict and fights, the yajnas also became important and the Purohit assumed a special status in society. In the later part of our period, they received a major share of gifts from the Rajas and assumed a superior position with the other clan members. The office of the Raja assumed importance on account of wars. The division between senior and junior lineages became sharper. At what point of time these political distinctions became apparent is difficult to state, but we must remember that the 10th book of Rig Veda contains the Purusha Sukta hymn on the origin of four Vedas. In later Vedic texts, we find evidence of superior Rajanya groups assuming the status of a Kshatriya, a separate Varna by itself. These developments took place after 1000 BC. This does not mean that the society was stagnant during our period of society. In fact, it was changing slowly but surely, leading to development. In the later Vedic phase of complex social political structure. We will see in Unit 9. Tribal assemblies, Gana, Vidatha, Sabha, Samiti are mentioned in Rigveda. Mainly Sabha and Samiti. Gan and Vidat were also. The Sabha may have been the council of select clan members. When we select some clan members, we will contribute them in the Sabha. As such, it was exclusive. The Samiti comprised the whole clan. The Vidat was the gathering at which, among other things, the booty acquired in a raid was distributed. These assemblies performed the functions of government and administration and were also involved in the selection of Raja from amongst the clansmen. Thus, they kept the power of warriors. However, as stated before, though we do not find well-defined polity hierarchy in early Vedic setup, the changes during the period gave rise to the social political hierarchy which manifested itself on the origin of farming system during the later Vedic phase. The early Vedic society was governed by tribal values and norms and was largely egalitarian. Next is religion. The religious ideas of Vedic people are reflected in the hymns of Rigveda. Yes, tantras, mantras, yajnas, sacrifices. They connected with the religion also. They manipulated the natural forces around them, like wind, water, rain, thunder, fire, etc., which they could not control, and invested nature with divinity conceived in human forms, which were mostly masculine. Very few female deities were venerated at that time. The religion thus reflected the patriarchal society and was that of primitive animism. Indra was a god of strength who was frequently invoked, the destroyer of enemy. He was venerated as the ideal hero, foremost in war, always ready to strike down the demons, the destroy to destroy the settlements of dasas and at those who propagated and worshipped him. He was the god of storms and thunder, was the rainmaker who was requested periodically to release the rains. He could not be banished. Therefore, thunder and rain were related with strength, which was personified in a masculine form, represented in the god Indra. The concept of a tribal chief who was a warlord is also found represented in the character of Indra. Agni, next in the importance of Indra. Agni was a god of fire. Some beautifully invoked hymns in Rigveda are dedicated to him, Agni. He was the epicenter of many domestic rituals such as marriage. Epicenter. If we will do any special sacrificial thing, then we use Agni for that particular ritual. Deemed as the purest of five elements, he was considered to be an intermediary between heaven and earth, between gods and men. He dominated the domestic hearth, and marriages were solemnized in his presence. The worship of Agni ascribed symbolic significance to the hearth as the most venerated part of the homestead and nucleus of household. Fire destroyed dirt, germs, and hence Agni was considered to be pure. The importance of Agni can be related to that of the yajna in the early Vedic society. It was believed that oblation offered to Agni were carried to the gods in the form of smoke. All people thought like we have wished so many things from our God, and the God is sending their messages to us. Okay, like this. This was the faith of that people. Varuna. Varuna personified water and he was the upholder of natural order of the universe. Varuna personified water. Yama, god of death, had an important place in the early Vedic religious beliefs. That there were many gods, many other gods, just like Surya, Soma, Savitri, deity of whom the most popular Gayatri month is dedicated. Gayatri. Rudra, etc., and the host of celestial bodies like Gandharvas, Apsaras, Maruts, Vishwadevas, to whom prayers are addressed in the Rig Veda. The Soma sacrifice was a key ritual which has been believed to be specific only to Iran and India. The Soma plant was stated to grow in the northwest mountains. The juice of Soma plant was drunk on solemn occasions. It served as hallucinogen. An entire book of Rig Veda is dedicated to Soma and entails a complicated symbolism. The Vedic religion was sacrificial. Sacrifices were performed to invoke the gods, asked for boons like victory of battles, acquisition of cattle, sons, etc. These were the small obligations were confined to the domestic sacrifice, but from time to time large sacrifices were conducted for which the clan brought substantial presentations. Public sacrifice was regarded as solemn occasion. The wealth procured and collected by the Raja by mean of voluntary tribe and presentations from the wish was invested and consumed in the yajna. Gifts were also given on such occasions to other rajas also. We find some hymns dedicated to the power residing in the sacrificial implements, especially in the sacrificial altar, to the stones used for pressing soma plant, to the plug, weapons of war, drums, mortars, pistols. Hymns were recited in these sacrifices, and generally the priest performed these yajnas. The priest performed the yajnas. The frequent sacrifices of animals led to a knowledge of their anatomy. For the Vedic people, the world grew out of a vast cosmic sacrifice, was maintained by the proper performance of sacrifice. Religion was not based on magico ritual formula 239, rather, it stressed direct communication with gods through sacrifices, hymns, etc. In this unit, you have learned about literary sources, you have archaeological sources, which helps us in reconstruct of early Vedic society. In the light of archaeological evidence, it is difficult to accept the notion of a large-scale high Aryan migration. Also, we cannot look at the early first millennium BCE as a period of Aryan conquest that led to the spread of homogeneous Aryan culture over northern India. The archaeological excavations do not support the theory of the conquest. Early Vedic economy was mainly pastoral, and cow was the most important form of wealth. As we have seen, the battles were done. Battles were fought for the cows. Agriculture, sedentary, secondary importance. First is pastoral, second is agriculture. Life of early Vedic. Early Vedic society was tribal society, egalitarian society. Clan and kinship related formed the basis of society. Family was basic social unit. Social division based on occupations had started, but there was no caste division at that time. Early Vedic polity, the tribal chief or Rajan and priest and Purohita had important positions. We have discussed a lot of things about early Vedic society in Unit 8. Now, in Unit 9, we will study about the social structure of Vedic period. This was early Vedic period. We will start in Unit 9 in our next class. Yes. Now, I am going to end this class.